really interesting op-ed in the New York Times that I want to discuss, talking about why Republicans that lost, why they actually didn't do as well as people were expecting them to do. Specific races are the ones they're breaking down. And this is after Herschel Walker's loss. And with that in mind, combing through some of the election data, the vote count, to understand what really occurred and what really caused these people to lose. And it's very interesting from Nate Cohen, I think. Turnout by Republicans, it reads, was great. It's just that many of them didn't vote for Republicans. And that's the argument that this individual is making, is that it's not Democrats got a bunch of their voters compared to Republicans out to vote. Republicans came out to vote in high numbers, but a lot of them didn't vote for the Republican candidate in some of these races. They might vote for the Republican at the top of the ticket, but then once they got to the senatorial race or something like that, they would then go to the Democratic option. As it continues, after yet another disappointing showing for Republicans in Georgia's Senate runoff on Tuesday, some conservatives, like Sean Hannity, Newt Gingrich, and Kevin McCarthy, have begun to point to a surprising culprit, a failure to take advantage of early voting. The theory seems to be that Republicans are losing because early voting is giving Democrats a turnout edge. It follows a similar conversation after the midterm elections, when a chorus of conservatives said Republicans need to start encouraging mail-in voting. So what he's laying out here is a lot of people are shifting now within the Republican Party and saying the reason why we didn't do as well in races like Herschel Walker's is because we're not leaning enough into mail-in voting, into early voting, because of all the lies that have been spread. Now, I think that plays a role in all of this, but the argument he's making is the most important aspect is the Republicans who didn't vote for the Republican candidate in some of these races. He continues, but as more data becomes available on turnout in this year's election, it is quite clear that turnout was not the main problem facing Republicans. In state after state, the final turnout data shows that registered Republicans turned out at a higher rate, and in some places a much higher rate than registered Democrats, including in many of the states where Republicans were dealt some of their most embarrassing losses. Very fascinating. Instead, high-profile Republicans like Herschel Walker in Georgia or Blake Masters in Arizona lost because Republican-leaning voters decided to cast ballots for Democrats even as they voted for Republican candidates for U.S. House or other down-ballot races in their states. We'll stop it there. Very fascinating. The reason why some of these key races didn't go the way that Herschel Walker would have hoped, the Republican Party would have hoped, Blake Masters in Arizona, Kari Lake, is, at least according to this New York Times, writer, comes down to Republicans who voted for maybe a Republican House of Representatives candidate, voted for the Republican in some of these other down ballot races, but when it came to that contentious and MAGA candidate, they would flip and vote for the Democrat. And that could have made the difference, which is wild. And it shows you that the narrative that originally came out after the midterms, that the reason why Republicans didn't do as good as expected is because of the Trump election denier mindset and brand, is being proven true time and time again, because that's what pushed these registered Republicans or Republican-leaning voters to voting for Democrats, was the too radical in their mind Republican options. Very interesting.